Today we're going to talk about how I think that 2023 is going to be a big reset for the sports card hobby, but 2024 and beyond, look out. Let's talk through it.
Strength and honor, strength and honor, strength and honor. At my signal, unleash hell.
Hello to all my sports card collectors, investors, all of my collectibles friends. How are we doing? It is another day. It is another card and collectibles video. Thank you very much for joining me here today. If you're new here, please hit that subscribe button down below if you like what you hear. Coming out with just about daily sports card collectibles content. I'm here for you. I am always here for you. Also, don't forget to connect with me on IG at SportsCardDad, and I'm also on the Twitter, the SportsCardDad. All right, I might be the only sports card content creator that gets accused of being too positive with my messaging and then also being too negative from people in my messaging.
One shall stand, one shall fall. Why throw away your life so recklessly? That's a question you should ask yourself, Megatron.
I think that's kind of hilarious, but actually I feel like it means that I'm doing a good job because frankly, I want to make sure that I'm covering the spectrum. I don't want it to seem like, hey, everything is rosy when frankly, there's not things that are rosy going on. And then I also don't want to be too Debbie Downer-ish where it's just like, blah, everything is terrible all the time because that's not true either. I like to hit on both sides of the aisle, if you will. And frankly, I think to be one way or the other, it would just be disingenuous for me because I am mainly an optimistic guy. So for me, I look at life as a whole really in a positive light. But then, yeah, I have to be realistic about stuff too. There's negative stuff going on in the hobby and it has to be talked about. So I like to kind of hit on all the fronts. I might be excited about a certain type of card, might be excited about a new release, might be excited about a different, pickup or whatever. I might be excited about some of my pickups, but I also can't ignore the fact that inflation is a real thing. The federal fund rate is an actual thing. The weaker economy right now is an actual thing. So I'm not going to pretend like those don't exist and that people aren't going through suffering right now in different areas related to these topics and how that probably has some sort of effect on card buying. I think that a lot of folks are having a hard time just accepting the fact that trillions of dollars of blanket stimulus, $3 trillion plus dollars, entered the economy over the last few years. It's not just some like wild coincidence that, you saw sports cards and crypto and a lot of speculative assets just kind of go like this. That wasn't by surprise. It was actually kind of by design, really, if you think about it. I mean, that blanket stimulus, everyone just getting a check, or a lot of folks getting a check, it's got to go somewhere. And look, if you didn't need it for bills and whatever, then look, and I know this because I heard it on different podcasts. I heard on different things to where it was like, oh, I bought, I got stimulus money. I bought X card. I sold it for X, sold it for Y. This was something that was pretty widely talked about a couple of years ago. So the idea that none of the stimulus money went into cards is not factual. And then on top of it, you also have mega influencers like Gary Vee and Logan Paul talking about their excitement about cards. Yeah, I mean, this stuff is all going to kind of work together among other factors as well. Look, and even leading up to the pandemic, there was more and more interest in collectibles, sports cards, comic books, and all the stuff. And that just kind of supercharged it. And now here we are. And so while I might have kind of changed my strategy a little bit, I made a video on this, last week about my 6-month strategy as we move into 2023. I'm still buying cards. This week, I bought a 2015 SGC 10, or excuse me, not 2015, 2013 Select Blue Prism, Drew Brees. I bought a 2018 Orange Prism, numbered out of 249 PSA 10 Brees. Kind of going with my PC guy, huge New Orleans Saints fan, so I've been picking up some Brees stuff. 2015 Prism Breeze, I think it was a violet mosaic numbered out of 50, and then a 2017 Prism Breeze. And this one was kind of a cool one. It was like a red mojo something or another, numbered out of 49. I like the 2017 set because it's that Mahomes rookie set. And I got that one that was 2013 Blue Prism, Blue Prism was $50. The 2015 Prism Mosaic, numbered out of 50, PSA 9, $70. 2017 Prism Red Power Refractor, numbered out of 49, $68. And then 2018 Orange Prism PSA 10 was $60. And a Stranger Things card, Mike Wheeler, 2018 Relic card, numbered out of 50, $29. So it's not as if I'm not buying cards. This was all in the last week. I'm just buying different types of stuff, and I'm just in kind of a little bit of a holding pattern for a lot of the bigger cards that I want. I just want to see what happens as we move into 2023, because for a lot of the stuff I'm buying, it's not mega rare. As I've said, I'm not buying the golds numbered to 10, the black finite, whatever the hell, one of ones, the eel skin, numbered out of 5 or whatever. I'm just not buying that stuff. But for a lot of the vintage I want, for a lot of the, actually there's a couple of like junk wax era PSA 10 cards. One of them is the 89 score Barry Sanders and a PSA 10. That's a card when I got back in the hobby, 2018, 2019, that PSA 10 was a $250, $300 card all day. Now it's about a $1,200 card, but that's a perfect example of a card that I very much wanted to add to my collection. I don't want to pay $1,200 though. That card has been way up. It's come down. I want to see if that one's going to go sub $1,000. And I think eventually it will. I'm not sure, but I think that it might. And if it does get into that $700, $800 range, then I want to pick one of those up. But that's a perfect example of a card that I want that I just want to wait on. So a lot of the stuff that I want is out there. It's not pop 1, pop 3, whatever, $50,000 card. I just want to be a little bit more patient just because there is a lot of macroeconomic stuff that is affecting, in my opinion, not just the card market, but all assets as a whole. We're not even talking about just cards. We're talking about crypto and stocks and real estate and all the stuff. I think that 2023 is going to be just kind of a big, it's a year where we're just kind of hanging on, and there's going to be a little bit of a reset economically in general. And then I think the Fed is going to back off raising rates. I think it's going to chill a little bit. I think we're going to go through kind of this time where, Jerome Powell, he is not playing around with this inflation thing. Every time he speaks, he says exactly the same thing. And it just proves that he is fully committed to continuing to raise rates, doing whatever to get inflation down. And from hearing him talk, it does not sound like it's going to stop over the next 6 months. So for me, like the next 6 months is kind of like, let's just hold up. Let's hold up and just kind of see what everything looks like. But I think that it will change though. And once it stops, once you get kind of like, oh, we're not raising rates, we're starting to see some positive news out here, the market overreacts to that as well. So that's where I think that, pricing could move back upward, and then a rate reduction down the line will probably come at some point. I don't know when that will be, but again, once you start moving back rates again, then you get that same sort of effect. Markets start to price the stuff in. So it's 2023 for me. At least the first half of 2023 is just going to be kind of a wait and see, continue on with some of my PC stuff. And not that I won't take shots at cards that I really like where I think, man, that's priced really well. I'll do it, but I'm just not in a huge rush on stuff. I just want to see how this kind of plays out, and then we'll reapproach. Yeah, but Dustin, you said 2024 and beyond. So why so bullish 2024 and beyond? What's happening? I think the big thing that's really going to drive this market, I've really put a lot of thought into it, and it's not even something I'm really a big fan of, frankly, but I think it's going to be a big driver moving forward. It's something that's changed over the last few years. Legislation has changed on this to where it's becoming more and more accepted. And what I'm talking about, of course, is sports betting and sports gambling. When I see that DraftKings is a partner with the NFL and the NFL Players Association, and they're all getting a piece of that pie, the sports betting space is massive, huge money on sports betting. And that's not something that you could always do going back in time. That's a fairly new deal where now sports betting is accepted. It's becoming more of a mainstream thing. I'm seeing a lot of younger people that are involved in it. I'm seeing more and more content creators, sports card content creators, talking about how they're doing it. They're getting involved in sports betting, which is interesting to me as well. And so that is starting to broaden out. And I think that really, I think it's pretty obvious that sports card breaks, these razzes and these different things that are done in the sports card hobby, that is an extension of sports betting. And I think that that is going to be really a big catalyst for the hobby moving forward. That's not something that was even really a part of the equation 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years ago. And it's a big part of the equation, I think, now as we move forward. Michael Rubin, the CEO of Fanatics, sold off his 10% of the 76ers. Why did he do that? In his statement, he did it because he wants to be able to be involved in the sports betting space. And it's a conflict, obviously. And so again, while I'm not crazy about the idea of, gambling addiction and all that stuff, hey, it's just a part of the world that we're living in. And I think everyone's got to take personal responsibility, kind of know your limits, know your budget. That's going to be a big thing, I think. And really just kind of being careful with all this stuff. But sports cards and sports betting is really kind of going hand in hand nowadays. You see it. I mean, the products that are produced, they've got the one of ones, everyone's chasing those. Everyone's entering into a break to win the golden ticket. And that is really a big part of new product as it's coming out. Is it a totally bad thing? Not necessarily. I mean, it's bringing new people into the hobby. A lot of people might find this hobby because they watch a break. They see that Drake is trying to find the logo man or whatever, and that's what gets them in. And they're like, hey, Hank Aaron rookies. How about that? Let's take a look at that or whatever, or it's some other modern player, or I'm going to buy singles on this or whatever. They get into it and they start to venture out a little bit. So I don't necessarily think it's a terrible thing, but I just think it's a given. This is something that is going to continue to drive this hobby. I saw it at the National as well. You had the kind of that corporate section, Breakers Pavilion, everyone's screaming their head off over some random card, whatever. Oh my God, we got a massive hit. And then literally 20 yards away, you've got vintage dealers that every time there's a scream or a yell, they're just like, oh my God, I can't stand this. It was just hilarious because it's two different paradigms in the sports card hobby, and they're right next to each other, and they probably don't understand each other, frankly, because the people that are there, to shop for the vintage stuff are not involved in that space and vice versa. I'm not going to say that nobody is. I'm sure there's people that buy vintage that are also involved in modern breaks. Fine. But I just thought that was kind of an interesting take from the National. And I think that's something that has really grown. I've only been to the last two Nationals, but I have to assume that if we go back 5, 6, 7, 8 years at these Nationals, that breaking part has gotten a lot bigger over time. And now we're kind of, it's a big part. It's a very big part. And Fanatics has not shied away from wanting to do that, continue it, expand it, etc. So this is going to be an interesting thing. So yes, 2023 for me, I'm still buying cards, as you can see, but I'm just being a little bit more careful, and other collectibles as well. I'm just being a little bit more careful. But I think that once we kind of get through this little bit of a reset, or a kind of a big reset, it's going to be fun times ahead. And of course, I like the stuff long term. All right, guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you very much for joining me here today. Stay healthy, stay awesome, and I will talk to you again later.